What is something you have that you're pretty sure no one else has? I have my great great grandparents' passports. They're handwritten on a single piece of paper and signed by Queen Victoria. My grandfather was on the US Indianapolis during WWII and was transferred off of it before they delivered the bombs, and it sank. He happened to take a book from the ship's library and never returned it. I inherited all of his books and happened to stumble across it while going through them. It's stamped with the ship's library stamp. So unless any other sailor took a book from the library of the US Indianapolis before it sank and then held onto it all these years, this may be the only one in the world. The master recording of the Phantom of the Opera, or part of it, anyway. My dad was the recording engineer, so he had the tape from when they made an album of the show with the original cast. Edit. Bonus item: a silver Tiffany's cup and spoon that was given to me when I was born by Phyllis Diller. She also had it in great love. Phyllis Diller. Edit 2. Haha, clearly worded the Phyllis Diller bit oddly. My parents were friends with her, so she gave them an engraved silver Tiffany's cup and spoon when I was born. She was in no way involved in the birth. A human atlas bone from the site of a medieval prison 25 years ago. My then BF was working as the lowest ranked barrow pusher on a building site. Foreman knew that ancient bones may turn up and knew he was supposed to send for the archaeologists if so. Bones turned up. Foreman said fuck that, we are filling in, not getting behind schedule for some old shitty prisoner bones. BF tried to say something, but would have been fired if he pushed it. He was pretty horrified, but couldn't lose his job, and crept back to take a bone after the site closed. In his mind it was a way of saying we'll remember you, even if you're under concrete. We were only teenagers, so didn't really know what to do with it for the best. I have kept it in a box ever since. I know I should do something with it. My grandfather was one of the lead engineers on the Oxcart/Blackbird project for Lockheed. He engineered the pressure lock system for the cabin for high altitude. I'm in possession of a miniature proof of concept he made for the lock. Up until a week ago, a mouth that picked up radio stations. I play in bands, and for years couldn't figure out why, whenever I would get close to the microphone, the PA system would pick up local radio stations. I always assumed it was due to crappy unshielded mic cables. Well, I went to the dentist and decided to get my permanent retainer removed. I scheduled an appointment and that night had band practice. I got close to the mic and picked up a radio station. It occurred to me that my retainer, if you're unfamiliar, a permanent one is basically just a steel wire glued in your mouth, was slightly bent and conductive. Sure enough, the next week I got it removed, and now I don't pick up radio stations anymore near microphones. D. A signed copy of the Betamax version of The Last Unicorn. A Contra Northeast's cartridge autographed by Billy D. Williams. A key to unlock the B6 level on an elevator in the World Trade Center along with a matching Port Authority issued ID card. The cufflinks that Vincent Price wore in the movie Laura, 1944. I have tickets to some MLB playoff games that never happened. My grandmother worked for Ticketron back when that was a thing. She left behind a bunch of memorabilia. Some used tickets to events and such. Ticketron handled all the Mets affairs back then too. So, we would always get tickets to games. In all of the things left behind are 2 different bundles of 3 tickets each for the Mets 1985 playoff games. Only, the Mets didn't make the playoffs in 1985. I'm unsure if it was a printing error for the 86 baseball year, or they were printed off in expectation of them making the playoffs, but either way, I have them. My dad saved the very button that the King of Sweden pushed to engage a new production line in the factory he worked in. The factory was shut down a few years later, and Dad took the opportunity to bring the button with him on his last days of work. Edit. Haha, the king didn't work in the factory. It was as an opening ceremony for the production line. The wood industry is huge in Sweden, so it was a kinda big deal for the economy, and so on and so on. A piece of a turbine from a crashed Airbus A300. A first-gen iPod prototype from 2001 with hand-soldered components. Edit. The prototype status is currently in dispute, with theories of it being a less rare test unit. I'm sure other people have it, but not many people have both. I inherited a real Apollo 11 patch that went to the moon from my grandfather who worked on the mission, and my aunt gave me a Mercury astronaut test helmet worn by Alan Shepard. An oil lamp from ancient Rome which is about 2000 years old. It's in pretty good condition and would probably still work today. I have an extended car warranty. I have a tiny school book from the 1800s and the covers are filled with the writings of a little girl. I'm trying to track down her descendants to give them this book because I don't like having something so valuable and irreplaceable in my possession, but there is no other little book like it. It is a history book and many of the entries would now be considered racist, especially toward Native Americans, and also this little girl, and likely her children and grandchildren, are long gone. A 1993 Lincoln Town Car my great-grandpa won on The Price is Right. Mint condition Nirvana ticket for a concert they never played due to Kurt Cobain's death. April 94, Manchester GMX. 2 legal birthdays that are 18 days apart. My great-great-grandfather's 1923 retirement watch. A Howard, never used, still in the original case. World's longest spinning fidget spinner. My father works for a ball bearing company. They developed the world's longest spinning fidget spinner for the Guinness Book of World Records as a PR piece. He got to keep the spinner after the trials and it now sits at my desk at home. Update. I meant longest in terms of time spun, not length. I added a video in the comment thread for those interested. Update 2. I'll add the video here as well. Update 3. I mentioned this in the other comments, but to clarify, he got to keep the original prototype. From what he told me, they ended up making more to be given to clients as gifts and be used to in the record-breaking spin. A near-mint 78 RPM pressing of Go to the Mardi Gras by Professor Langha. An intact violin made by Paolo Giovanni Magini. It is one of 3 that are left. Made in Brescia. 1614. Unfortunately, the original bow is in a hermetically sealed glass tube after we discovered it was infected with bow mites. I also have my copy, my great-grandfather's copy, my grandfather's copy, and my father's copy of the BSA Boy Scouts manuals, and all of those copies of the Blue Jackets manual. Blue Jackets didn't change nearly as much as the BSM did. My 2 fully functioning kidneys are both on my left side. Edit to answer questions BC. I'm tired of typing on my phone. My mom took me to the doctor when I was 2/3/4, not sure exactly. Early 80s, so technology wasn't the greatest. I think they did an ultrasound and kept bringing in doctors and nurses to look at it. Of course they didn't tell my mom anything right away. I had had a lot of bladder infections and they were trying to figure out why. I think they said my kidneys are also small, but they are both there. I got to see an X-ray about 10 years ago BC. A doctor had never seen or heard of it. Who would have guessed this would be my highest comment? A Princess Ariel foil balloon from the summer 1998 with air in it still. A finger painting from a chimpanzee. My mother was friends with a woman who worked at the local zoo. For enrichment, they taught the chimpanzee how to finger paint. I was obsessed with chimpanzees when I was younger, so my mother asked her to save a painting for me. It's hanging next to my bed. The chimp is dead now, old age, but his artwork will live forever. R.I.P. Hank. While it's highly likely someone else has one by the same manufacturer, maybe even of the same style, because it is handcrafted, no one else can have exactly the same piano I have. An 1862 Fisher upright piano, built in New York, made of cherry wood, with original ivory keys. A cassette tape of Les Claypool playing All of Animals by Pink Floyd on an acoustic guitar in some basement in Santa Cruz, California from some point in the 1990s. I have one of the press plates used to print the front page of the New York Times the day after 9/11. Now I know other people have this as well, because I originally had 7 plates and gifted them out over the years. But outside us 7, pretty sure no one else has that. 14 copies of Nintendo Land on the Wii U. Source: a can of emergency water from the Korean War. I was racking my brain because I/my family have a lot of interesting things, but I feel like this is something that very few people would have. I still have my official DaVinci Code cryptex that I received for being one of the first to finish all the quests during the DaVinci Code web quest on Google about 15 years ago. This invisible, probably imaginary little splinter stuck since forever in the inner side of my right thigh, which randomly pierces my skin when I'm walking, forcing me to go to a bathroom, pull down my pants and check if it's actually there. Never had anything, but I feel this since I was a kid.